All right, guys. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to Fosters.com published an article on April 11th, and it's the headline of the article says transportation emerges as weak link in food supply chain. Now, to respond to that, I'm going to make it very simple because some of you that watch this, you don't. Your job is not in the supply chain necessarily, or maybe it is, but you only see it from one side, so you don't really see the overall what's happening. So the weak link, yes, the weak link may be in trucking. There's a reason why. See, when you read that article, you'll see that one of the people they speak to is at some level of management in a grocery warehouse for a grocery chain in New Hampshire, up in New England. Another is the president of a grocers association. So there's some things that are very common with a grocery warehouse that run drivers off, that make it so drivers don't want to go there, and other drivers just don't even want to get into the segment of the industry that haul groceries, which make it much harder for a company that specializes in that to attract drivers, especially drivers that will run hard and be on time, not cause claims, that kind of thing. So one of those things is you spend forever getting loaded and getting unloaded. They don't care about your time. You will sit hours and hours and hours at the loading dock. It's crazy. And then they don't care that you sat so long that you ran out of time and you no longer have time on your logbook to legally drive anywhere else to park. They tell you, you can't park here, you have to leave. When that puts you, the driver, or us, the driver, at risk. If we leave, where are we going to park? If something happens on the way to a safe, legal place to park, who holds the ball for that? The driver? It's always going to fall on the driver. Right? Not all jurisdictions will say you had an excuse to drive. Now, you can refuse to leave, right? Now, and this does happen at times. You will refuse to leave the customer's property, telling them that, look, it took you 6 hours to unload my trailer. I no longer have the time to go anywhere, so I got to stay here. And they say you have to leave, and the driver says, I can't leave. I don't have the hours. Well, fine. We'll call the local police department, and we'll have you escorted off or charged with trespassing. At that point, you can call their bluff and they can call local cops. Well, local cops don't know the hours of service and the federal regulations for the most part. So what's going to happen? You're going to be told to hightail it out of there. Why do you want to put yourself up and put yourself at risk like that? Another issue that goes on is oftentimes you don't have access to a bathroom. So you're stuck in the truck, no bathroom, or you might have an outhouse stuck in a dark corner with no lights. May or may not have toilet paper, may or may not have been cleaned this month. This week would be a good start. You may have to wait outside your truck in a dingy room where you can't sleep. You'll be in your truck and you won't be able to sleep because they'll bang into the forklift or an electric pallet jack and wake you up. Then you leave and you're tired because you haven't slept. Or maybe you have to unhook from your trailer and pull out, which case you can sleep. But you still got the problem of you spend hours. It's not uncommon to talk to somebody at a grocery warehouse that's been there 7, 8, 9, 10, 24 hours. It's not uncommon. Why would you want to do that? Why would any driver want to do that? Then you got the whole thing of a lumper. Now, this is a very curious thing that I see nowhere else. All right? So, you take a load to a grocery warehouse. It could be McLean, Publix, Food Line, or which is Delhaize. It could be, you name it. You know, this will happen. Whether you've got dry goods like cereal and noodles, or whether you have soup or refrigerated product, there's a third party that will work in that warehouse. So you have to pay the third party to unload the customer's freight that they ordered. Now, it's not an insignificant amount. No, You could pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Look, there's been times where I was not pulling flatbed and I was on the dry van side of things. And we get to a grocery warehouse and I'd have pallets of paper products. Or I'd have pallets of cereal. and not have to pay a lumper service. Right? The lumper service would charge $500, $600 to unload 20 pallets. And then they would hold you at the door for 5-6 hours for no good reason. You know, they can unload the product, count it, charge you, and then you can be on your way. But instead, they unload the product, they break it down, restack it, and separate it how they want it. Then they count it, then they come out and get you and charge you for it. There's no excuse for what they do. So why does anybody want to come into that segment of the industry? They don't. Those companies that run groceries or in and out of grocery warehouses and produce farms and stuff like that typically have a pretty high turnover. It's hard for them to keep drivers. Now, some guys like it. They found their niche in it, and they're willing to put up with it. A lot of drivers, they're not willing to put up with it. Why do you want to be treated subhuman? Why do you want to go someplace and they tell you can't idle the truck to keep your air or heat running? You got to sweat or freeze. You know, or be told you can't stay in the truck. You got to sit in this room. And a lot of times they just treat you very poorly. Now, drivers and companies share, you know, they have a culpability in all this too. I'll talk about that in a different video. But the short of it is, you grocery warehouses, you brought this on yourself. Now, companies, publications like Fosters.com and others, they don't want to focus on that. They just want to highlight the fact that there's a problem, and they're going to pin it on the transportation industry. Quite frankly, people in the transportation industry are sick and tired of what goes on at the grocery warehouses. So they just don't go. They refuse to go. Before I left driving and went back to hauling open deck freight, I got to where I would refuse to take a load to any grocery warehouse. It wasn't worth my time. There's nothing like taking a load to a grocery warehouse. Walmart distribution centers are the same. They're considered a grocery warehouse, right? I got to where I would refuse to go to them. Nothing like delivering to one 2 hours from your house and sit at the dock so long that you run out of time, then have to take a 10-hour break before you go home. No, not doing it. Then you won't let me park and be legal? No, not coming to your facility. And then you pay cheap, right? We're seeing freight rates that are paying about the same as they paid in the early 1980s. Nothing costs like that anymore. But that's what they want to pay, and they expect you to haul it. And the rates are so low that a lot of companies lose money. So why are they going to haul the load and take that product to their warehouse? Now, some of that comes into because we have this thing called a broker or a third-party logistics service. So what happens is somebody like Kellogg's has so many loads going to Harris Teeter. We'll just use this for an example, right? And instead of trying to find the trucks themselves, Kellogg's will go to a third-party provider, third-party logistics provider, which is, you know, also at times referred to as a freight broker. And they will say, we need 15 trucks to haul these products to Harris Teeter. So the broker will post 15 loads on different load boards, and individual drivers or companies will call in and try to get those loads. Now, some companies will sign contracts to haul for like Coke or Pepsi or Procter & Gamble, General Mills, whoever. But the rates are getting driven down. It costs anywhere from $1.10 to about $1.45 range before a company or a single truck operator will see any profit. That's a break-even point. Some large companies have got their break-even point down a little bit lower than that. But you're seeing these loads for groceries posted on load boards, and they're paying less than $1 a mile in some cases. In some cases, they're paying $1.05, $1.06, $1.10. They simply can't afford to haul them. So some companies have decided to lay drivers off. Some small companies have decided to cease operations until the rates come up. Some have gone out of business and laid off all their drivers. Some of your small trucks, small companies, and your owner-operators have gone to haul other freight where the rates pay to where they can still make a profit and stay in business. So the bulk of the culpability of the problem of the supply chain falls at the feet of your brokers, your suppliers, and your grocery warehouses. Right there. That's where it lies. So next time you go to the grocery store and you have a hard time finding something, or even on the food service sector, when that would be your restaurants, and they're out of product, remember, They created the circumstances that the drivers aren't coming to them. Supply and demand. If you're not willing to pay, you're not going to get it. That's just simple economics. You treat people bad, and your drivers don't want to go there. You stop sending drivers there because it's very expensive to lose drivers. They have to go through a whole hiring process to get new drivers. Some companies spend millions and millions of dollars a year to keep the trucks full. When you're spending advertising budgets like that to recruit, why do you want to send your drivers to places that is causing them to quit? You don't. You find something else. So, next time you see an article like that, remember, there's a reason the trucks aren't going there or the trucks aren't hauling it. So keep that in mind next time you see a stupid article that's trying to lay the issue on the feet of the truckers.